Welcome back, baseball fans, to another elimination video. Today we're eliminating the Florida Marlins. They had another rough year with a 10-21 record. Last year they were better. They were 16-21. This year the competition just got even better than previously. It's just very hard for the Marlins, based on realignment, based on putting a team together in the 1970s. We're in the same division with the Atlanta Braves, the Philadelphia Phillies, and New York Mets, who all have different periods of strength, sometimes overlapping, where two or three of those teams could be division winners. It's really hard for the Marlins to chase a division title. Maybe they can get to 500. Maybe they can get into a wild card. They have to just collect players who are unprotected as fringe extra player cards, and then try and get hot in one particular year and then try again the next. It's usually a one-year proposition. I think this team, they added Roy Hal at the top. Now he had 350, so but 60 at-bats didn't really help their overall, any overachieved significantly. But Willie Montanez is a cornerstone player, and he overcompensated by going 222 with 126 at-bats, so it really sank the team. Bergmeyer ended up being a nice closer with 57-cent ERA and 4 saves. Manny Motis had a struggling year. He should get a fantastic card in the offseason. But overall, it's been a struggle for this franchise. There's just not a practical solution as to what to do to get the Marlins near the top of this division without, being heavy-handed with it and breaking some rules to achieve that specific result. And I'm not necessarily in a position to do that at the expense of Major League Baseball history and the courses of the Phillies, Braves, and Mets franchises. So Marlins just simply have to overachieve and get what they can get. And they haven't gotten a lot thus far. Let's take a look now at the cards. 8 players will be leaving here, and there's some intriguing players on this list here. Aparicio just arrived this past year after being discarded by Baltimore, Boston, and the White Sox. Millan, a slick fielding second baseman. It'll be interesting to see what happens. We know Moda has a fantastic hitting card coming up. Segui is reasonable. The other guys aren't so much. So not a big loss. Let's see the dozen guys they build around. It's going to be, looks like 7 and 5. That's the You desire 7 and 5 mix of hitters to pitchers so that you're not lacking in one specific era. It'd be nice if we can get Hal McRae to just be a DH and not have him play in the field. It's just not a glorious team here. So we have Hal McRae, arguably the best player on this team. Kansas City just couldn't keep him as a designated hitter when Kansas City had so many other players that they needed, more importantly, to help them get to the top of the American League West and win those division titles. So McRae was the guy left, figuring that, well, we can replace designated hitter. And that might have been a mistake Kansas City's making, as they are struggling with offense. And the Marlins are going to have offense. But it's not like the Marlins can get 5 or 10 Hal McRaes. They're like if they get one of these guys. Ellie Rodriguez, we talked during the broadcast of his on-base percentage ability as a catcher and a good throwing arm and a good bat handler. Nice player. Willie Montanez to play first base as a 1. Hit no problems with lefties. That's a great start right there. If that was beginnings of a team, a DH, catcher, first base, I'd be happy with that. So Roy Hal is just a left-handed bat with power who can play third, not very well defensively, just a 250 hitter and a limited amount of participation. Could certainly be cut or replaced if you find someone better. Guerrero's a 3 shortstop. Wish he was a 2. Hits lefties okay. His offense is going to be spotty, Vada Pinson's still hanging around with a 74 card. He's got to be close to 40 here. But the stick, he's still hitting 276. And look, he's still an ace stealer. He just can't catch the ball anymore. Now, he had a nice year, Jose Morales, and he has a nice Hall hit 301, many times, about 4 or 5 times in his career. Do it with the Expos, do it with the Dodgers, do it with the Twins. These are nice players. And as far as the pitching goes, you've got Figueroa. We want to put Figueroa at the top of this as the Yankees Figueroa. So Figueroa goes to all 3 of those World Series. Here he wins 19 games. But you want to improve this team, you get on the phone and you make the deal with the Yankees, and of course that never happened. I guess he was a California Angel who ended up, as did Mickey Rivers, who was also a California Angel. Those guys ended up in New York. So their paths will be different, but as far as historical significance, I really do want to get Figueroa to the Yankees, as they would theoretically begin a World Series run pretty soon. And that's a chance for the Marlins to take advantage of a trade. And that's really the method to be used. You got to let this guy make you better by trading him. Vern Rule has a nice career with Houston later in the decade, early 80s. Falcone has a nice year in 81, I believe, either with the Mets or the Cardinals. Eduardo Rodriguez, just a journeyman long reliever, was a Brewer. Yeah, he doesn't last much longer, actually. And Tom Bergmeyer. Actually, they'll hold on to Bergmeyer as a staple. This way, they don't have to worry. I know this guy pitched a long career even though he bounced around a few teams, he was always decent. And they need some stability on this team. And having a lefty reliever that is stable and a relief 4 could help this franchise. So I'd hold on to him. And that's sort of, there are some nice pieces here. Don't get me wrong. You're not going to find Hall of Fame guys. You'll find a Hall of Very Good, like Hal McRae. Yeah, I mean, there's some nice pieces here. It's really hard to get the remaining pieces you need to get good starting pitching, good relief pitching, good defense, power on base, the whole 9 yards. But let's go take a peek at those other 8 players who are disappearing and see who the Marlins decide to keep, waive, and retire. All right, let's take a look at these Marlin players and see what their future is. We begin with a Hall of Famer, but he was only there for a year. It was Louis Aparicio. White Sox cut him loose because he loses his range. We know his career is over in 1973, but it's always good to look at these guys. World Series, Gold Glove, Rookie of the Year, 13-time All-Star. Last time we're going to see him. Starts with the White Sox, goes to Baltimore, back to the White Sox and the Red Sox. He was okay really everywhere he played. 66 Orioles, World Series, 707 plate appearances. Of course, he was great with the White Sox. Even with the Red Sox at age 37, 38, and 39. These are decent years. But his career's over. He went out on a good note. Look at that. 561 plate appearances, hitting .271 with the Red Sox at age 39. Did not play age 40. So with that, we can go over to the Marlins, and we put him on the retired list. Thank you, Louis Aparicio. That's kind of sad in a way. That's a great bit of talent for this franchise to lose. Next guy is Chuck Goggin, and almost the opposite end of Major League tenure. Here's a guy who only played just a little bit. This is what you get. You get guys who play a lot, but at the end of their career, or a guy who plays a little bit. So, we had the 73 Goggin card with this 289, 694 OPS card. And beyond that, he had one other plate appearance in Major League Baseball in 74. He went 0 for 1 for the Red Sox in 74. That won't get you a Strat card. Not a good start at all for the Marlins, as we already have the quantity of retirements you're allowed. The first 2 guys are gone. Next up, Louis Melendez, who was a Cardinal. From 70 to 77, Cardinal, also the Padres. So we had this 267 card. In 75 for the Cardinals, does kind of the same sort of thing. So with that being said, you could just swap that card with that card and continue on. Better teams wouldn't do that necessarily. They just take their chances with what's available in the draft. But you got to keep somebody. So let's start by keeping Luis Melendez. And we find 4 guys better, we'll put them on waivers. If we can. He's got to have a card in 74, the first year of next year's timeline, to get waivers. All right, next guy is Felix Millan. He was a Brave and a Met. Two division rivals pursued this guy, so he could be an interesting trade chip if he still has some stock left. You see Braves and then the Mets between 72 and 73. So both teams will be interested in getting this guy if he has some juice. And the answer is, yeah, he's got juice. 268, 283, 283 for a slick fielding second baseman. So you want to keep him, A. But B, you'll certainly entertain trade overtures. So let's do 2 things here. We want to keep Felix Millan, but we also want to put in our notes column, we'll put up our ears to a trade. Make us better, make the Mets or Braves worse by overcompensating in the trade. Next up, and this is the best story we're going to hear, Manny Mota. And we got a monster card to talk about here, folks. We know the year because we've been through this road before. So in 73, his last year as an outfielder for the Dodgers, was an all-star. The only time he was an all-star. But he only had 327 plate appearances. Maybe he got hurt after the all-star break and then couldn't resume playing in the outfield, or they recognized that he just didn't have a throwing arm to competitively play in the outfield anymore. So he just becomes a pinch hitter. Which leads us to the card they're going to select next year. In its first year of eligibility, it's the 1977 Manny Mota pinch hitting card, where it's a 395 1,000 OPS card. And this is the monster card that Marlins are going to get. Is it going to put them in the World Series? No. But it's certainly going to give them an opportunity to create headaches for their opponents. If you're wondering, there were 3 cards who have such statistical outliers that I use a limiter to decide how much playing time they can get. I want to take a look at a couple examples where Strat-O-Matic will put in their on their spreadsheet special rules for special players regarding playing time. In the case, the one I remember the most is 1980, and it's the 1980 Boston's Dave Rader. It's because the first year I played Strat as a kid was the 1980 season, and that's where I saw this rule here. At the very bottom it says it regards Dave Rader playing for the Red Sox. We strongly suggest that you restrict Dave Rader to approximately 137 at-bats, as his card is not a true reflection of his hitting ability. If he is used excessively, he will alter the overall Red Sox performance. There have been like warning lights in previous years, but my goodness, they go to a compound sentence structure here and really say, please, my God, warning lights, throw up some red flares or whatever. Please, the Red Sox are going to win 200 games if Dave Rader plays too much. I mean, pump the brakes on Dave Rader, my goodness. And so let's go now back into the roster sheet for 77. And we know on Mota's card it says pinch hitter, and he does play in the National League, so I guess they just assumed he wouldn't inflict the same amount of damage. We suggest that Manny Mota of Los Angeles, Roger Fleet of St. Louis, and Kirby of Texas be used sparingly. as the overuse of any one of them will distort their team's records. Well, it says sparingly. In that case, for the 77 season, which this is a good time to mention it, folks, if you do not have the 1977 original set of the entire decade in the first editions, this is the set to get. This is the coolest set of hitters and pitchers you're going to find. And the funnest individual year is 77 because it's the year Seattle and Toronto were added, so you have ridiculous offensive cards for George Foster and Rod Carew. It seems like every role player has use. You know, your 200 hitting catcher can hit lefties well or whatever. Like almost every player introduced has some value. So there's plenty of valuable cards. Moda, Fried, and Bavacqua all had their own special rules I used when I introduced my 77 season. Those rules had been that they could play every day. However, in their third plate appearance, running down the third baseline, they'd pull up with a tight hammy and have to leave the game. And have to be have a substitute finish the game for them. So they get 3 plate appearances per game instead of 4, 5, or 6 or whatever. And the other rule is, as poor defensive players, they cannot be designated hitters. So Moda would have to play left field as a 4+4 E16 if you want him to play in a game and bat 3 times. Same with Roger Fried. He's a 4 E16 in the outfield, and Bavacqua, I think, is a 4 E37 at third base. If you want the luxury of overusing these guys because of their batting prowess, you're going to have to suffer with defense, and you're also going to have to cover their roster spot with a defensive substitute in the game. So those were my Moda rules. But otherwise, Florida for 4 years will really terrify teams with having Manny Moda in the lineup on an everyday basis. We're just going to put 77 just as a reminder here of the boon that... and by the way, speaking of first overall pick of the draft, I think a 395 hitter sounds like a guy that will be the first pick of the draft, Manny Moda. So there you go. If you have any disputes about that, if you can find some 400 hitters out there like Ted Williams, I'd take Ted Williams. You know, but that's the case for Mr. Moda as he falls on the ground after hearing the news. He was floored, as you could say. All right. It's turned out to be a longer video than I thought it was going to be. Let's get to the pitching now. Beginning with this gentleman, Rich Troedson, and I think he's a one-hit wonder. T-R-O-E-D. Yep, there he is. 2-hit wonder. I don't think he's got any longevity in 74 for the Padres. No, 8.68 ERA in 18 innings. So we can retire him as well. Thank you, Rich Troedson. And now we know that the Marlins will be traders in the offseason because they got to find some bodies. You can't put 3 guys on the retired list, so you're going to have to make some deals. Next up, Diego Segui. Nice relief pitcher here. His son David played in the 90s for Baltimore. Diego Segui here. Had a nice year in 73 with a 130 whip and a 278 ERA. He's a Red Sox in 74. This card exists so he gets waivers. And frankly, that'd be fine. He doesn't have much juice left in him. So let's put him on waivers. Now we have 3, 1, and 3. Our last guy is Orlando Pena, and I think he is a fascinating story. Orlando Pena, check out the first year, 1958. So Orlando Pena, he played for some bad franchises. He played for the KCAs, and I think he played for the Senators. Played or teams with losing records. He was on and out of the league a few times. Missed a year there. Missed 3 years there. Missed a year there. Didn't have a lot of innings in a lot of these years. Up and down between AAA and the majors. But then in 73, remember, he doesn't have a Strat-O-Matic card, anywhere in here at all, even with these innings pitched. No Strat cards from 67 to 72. So he becomes a rookie in 73, technically, at age 39. And with Baltimore and St. Louis, he combines for a 2.95 ERA. It's a great story. And then he pitches all the way till he's 41 years old. And it's a shame they don't give him a Strat card in 74 because he's got 53 innings with a 135 whip, but they don't print that card. So it's a fun little story about Orlando Pena becoming a 39-year-old rookie after missing all these Strat-O-Matic years. If you were playing early 60s Strat-O-Matic, he'd be in the rotation. Look at that. But that's a cool little story about one of the older statesmen of our league who no one's heard about. I certainly had never heard about him. And he now gets to finally go into retirement. And so, overall, well, it's going to be a win because of Mota. That's going to make your draft look good. But then after that, when it gets to the second, third, fourth round of the draft, oh boy, it's going to get sketchy. They are going to have to move. And sadly to say it, they got to find another guy to keep. It could be Segui that they keep, just so they have 4. You have to have 4 keepers. And the waiver retirement package, this can be balanced. Teams often balance this out. Teams with too many waivers trade with teams who have too many retires. It doesn't. There's no compensation generally required because neither team has a stake in these players. They just want to get to the proper math. But the Marlins do need help in the offseason. Manny Mota, as great as that card and story is, it's certainly not going to be enough. So that's it today. Thanks for checking out this video. Eliminating the Florida Marlins. We'll see you next time.